another Palestinian group wants peace. Uh, uh, what did we agree on? Sheikh, right? So some sheikhs in Hebron are talking about possibly leaving the Palestinian Authority, not joining with Israel, but basically getting some recognition from Israel as being independent, basically becoming sort of like a Palestinian Emirate, and yeah. So this is what's happening now. We'll talk about this today. It's been I think it was a big sort of like a opinion piece or sort of like an investigative thing on, I think it was Wall Street Journal that has published it. So yeah, that's what today's episode of the Daily Objective will be about. Joining me today are Marco, Richard, and Alex. Thank you guys for joining me today. And let me remind people that today's episode of the Daily Objective is sponsored by the Objectivist Guide to the Galaxy. More about them later into the show. So, I mean, I'll start with you, Alex. So, yeah, we this is not necessarily something new. The fact that some clans or some sort of cities want to sort of come apart from their not constituents, but sort of their governance. We've been hearing about some of that in Gaza, that some families basically want to stand up to Hamas, and now we're hearing the similar thing in the Palestinian Authority. So, yeah, before we go a bit more further into what this would mean, what are your first thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, I think it was extremely irresponsible for the media to just go ahead and report on this, because I mean, now taking away what I think about it, they've just put a big cross on these people's backs, like come here, attack these people, kill them, whatever. And that's exactly what's been happening for the past couple of days. The members of this clan have been blown up by Hamas. They've had a huge target put on them. So, I really think it was extremely irresponsible for this plan even to be, broadcast. And the other thing is that it's actually not really changing anything because the Palestinian Authority doesn't have any jurisdiction in Hebron. They don't have any sovereignty. They have sovereignty to a certain degree in Ramallah. They have control there, but in Hebron, the Israel already does all of the coordinations with the clan. On paper, yes, of course, it is the Palestinian Authority who does control, but they don't have sovereignty there. Okay, it's like in Jenin, right? When they tried to do an anti-terror campaign in Jenin, they don't have control over the city. You know what I'm saying? So, um, I mean, it's not exactly a new plan. It's been on the books. It's an idea we've been tossing around for a while now. And I suppose, if you're going to think about it as it's a family, head of a family, right, who has, I suppose, slightly better interests than the Palestinian Authority because they may just want to take care of their family and want their family to do well and be safe. So, if it's a choice between the PA and the head of the clan, I'm going to go with the head of the clan. But let's not forget that the Al Jabri family are very violent. Okay. We have Ahmed Al Jabri, of course, who was the head of the Al Qassam Brigade. We also have, I think it was Abu Muhammad, who was also an Al Jabri as well, who was a big part of the Second Intifada. But I mean, none of the choices here are great. It's just, I suppose, how much you would be willing just to completely forgo all of your moral integrity, right? Is it half or is it all the way? Yeah, those are the choices. I mean, my my clear preference here would be to have complete sovereignty and um to administer the area correctly.
Yeah, and I think somebody in the chat post is this idea was taken from Professor Mordecai Kedar, which I think he was even mentioned in the article. I think he was one of the people who sort of came out with this idea of yeah, basically establishing some form of Palestinian Emirates. So yeah, this idea has been sort of flown around for a while. And so you mentioned Al-Jabari, so I'll mention the sort of the main person right now, the Sheikh Wadi Al-Jabari, also known as Abu Sanat, who has said he wants cooperation with Israel. Now, the article specifically talks about how this has happened before, but this time it's unique because him and four other leading sheikhs have signed a letter pledging peace and full recognition of Israel as a Jewish state, also including that they are willing to join the Abraham Accords, which is the sort of like the currently sort of like Trump's, I guess, a framework for normalization of relations with Israel between different Arab states. Marco, any opening thoughts from you about this?
Yeah, any form of local government which moves away from the kind of totalitarian anti-Semitic purpose that have got like the Palestinian Authority, for example, is good news. However, not good news are necessarily good news because you have these people effectively trying to look after their own interest. I mean, if you were in Sicily, this clan would be just another mafia family. So what you have here is local interests trying to save themselves, having worked out that the Palestinian Authority option is looking less and less viable. So yeah, frankly, I don't really see much leg to this kind of proposal. If anything else, as Alex pointed out, this has been proposed before and it's never really worked. The reason why it doesn't work because Hamas, the Palestinian Authority, and the majority of the people on the ground are actually not in favor of having Israel. This is a single proposal from a smallish clan, and again, a clan that finds itself in a particular position, having power over Hebron and having had a history of, certainly the last decades, of quasi-autonomy from the Palestinian Authority. So, yes, it's a good idea. I mean, if you can move away from the militant anti-Semitic kind of monsters that have been plagued the area is a good idea, and certainly moving towards more people subscribing to the Abraham Accord, i.e., creating some kind of collaboration with Israel, is a good thing. But yeah, it's not all that shines is gold, is it?
No, and frankly, to talk from an objectivist perspective about which is better, a tribal emirate or a religious theocracy, or an Islamist, dictatorship, is to choose between three turds. I mean, they're all lousy choices, aren't they? However, we've got to analyse where we're at and where we'd like to be, and what's remotely possible to move from this point forward. I mean, just to pick up on what somebody said in the chat there about Mordecai Kedar, because seems to be like the brains behind this, at least one of the brains behind it. He's an Arab cultural scholar at the Bar Ilan University in Israel. And he's obviously been talking to this Al-Jabani guy and to his father over a period of about like 10, 12 years or so. So it's been a long time in the making where it's been attempts to get these clans to move away from what the Palestinian Authority end of the spectrum would like to do, and the Hamas and end of the spectrum would like to do, and more towards some sort of peaceful living. In some sense. But let's be clear, already the Al-Jabani clan themselves are not all on the same page on this. Already some of the more extreme members have come out with a video and disavowed what this guy Yasser has said, and said that no, they've emphasized their commitment to an Islamic and national principles. So that's a flat no from them. And somebody set the guy's car on fire, apparently in East Jerusalem. and torched it. So, but that's kind of the cross on the back point that you're making, Alex, as well, isn't it, at this stage? And then combined with that, you've also got the clan activity going on in Gaza at the moment, and what Israel's trying to do in terms of disrupting Hamas with relations with various clans in Gaza and all of that. So this is complicated and simple, depending on where you want to start, really, because it's simple in to say none of these are suitable. It's complex to get into the detail of who does what and who might do what. But at the same time, you've got somebody who I mean, this guy is my first reaction when I hear about somebody brand new, and quite honestly, I've just heard about this guy, is to look up what they said about October the 7th back around the time of October the 7th to get some better flavor of what their position is and how reliable they are. Have they just come around to this view, for example, now that they're clearly losing and Israel is firmly in the driving seat? Is that now why they're coming out with proposals? But this guy did talk about October the 7th at the time, and he recognized the fact that he said, this is a quote from him, obviously translated, there will be no Palestinian state, not even in 1,000 years. After October the 7th, and he's speaking like a couple of days afterwards or so, after October the 7th, Israel will not give it. To think only about creating a Palestinian state will bring us all to disaster. So there's a recognition that the violence and hideous nature of October the 7th killed off the idea of a two-state solution, and he's recognizing that fact. But he's also recognizing the fact that he doesn't want the West Bank to become like Gaza, which continuing to pursue that kind of agenda may well end up leading to, or he fears may end up leading to. So there's some self-preservation, there's some pragmatism, there's also less I use the word reluctantly, less extremism than some of the other, characters. But what can we say? If you're going to get anywhere with the West Bank and with Gaza, you need first surely to be moving more towards them being like some of the slightly more civilized Arab states like Saudi Arabia. You're not going to leap from where we are now to them having a constitution and a statement of independence and being like the USA, are we? Frankly, let alone anything that resembles an objectivist ideal. So, as a stepping stone, maybe with extreme caution, this has some legs, but has it already been blown out the water by the manner in which it's been made public? Maybe.
Yeah, and there is something to say about, the fact that the way sort of like media looks at the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, right? It's whenever there is a little thing Israel seemingly does bad, all the news is about that bad stuff Israel is doing. Look at the terrible genocidal Israeli state. And when there is one Palestinian group that maybe talks about peace, it's like, oh my God, this is like a new generation. There will be peace now. And this amount of basically like what the media is focusing on. And then I have a few more things I wanna bring up, but first let me remind people that later in this year, Ayn Rand Center UK is organizing the Irreplaceable Spark Conference. Before I tell you a little bit more about it, let's watch a short video.
I've played rebels, outlaws, and gods, but nothing is more powerful than being the creator of your own life. So that's why I'm coming to the Irreplaceable Spark Conference, not just to speak, but to coach. Now, if you're ready to stop making excuses and stop bending a knee to mediocrity, I want to work with you. And this isn't for followers, okay? It's for the builders. It's for the risk takers. It's for the fire starters. And if that's you, I'll see you there.
So yeah, this is planned later this year, October 25th and 26th. You can check out objectivism.co.uk to find out more about it. And also tickets are already on sale and there's early bird pricing. You can get $100 of the premium ticket using the code ARCUK Premium, and you can also get $200 of the ARCUK VIP ticket using the code ARCUK VIP. So make sure to check out that, objectivism.co.uk. Now, moving back to the topic. So yeah, as I've said, the sort of like the media presentation, and there's a few more things generally about this amount of. It's not just media; it's also the Israeli state itself. How quick it is to jump um, on any sort of like Palestinians that seemingly want peace, right? It almost speaks of like low self-esteem, that basically, oh my god, okay, they do not want to kill us immediately, we need to work with them. They do not want to genocide us, they do not want to wipe us out, so we need to provide anything we can. If you go back to, I mean, even the idea of Oslo Accords, right? Or sort of recently Netanyahu sort of talking about arming some of the anti-Hamas groups in Gaza. It really, unfortunately, reminds me of that really bad meme, which is basically, it's like an American flag saying, when you when you fund a terrorist group to fight a terrorist group, you fund it to fight the terrorist group, you fund it to fight the terrorist group. It talks about this like repeated, basically we keep funding our enemies to fight somebody else only to later have to fight them. I mean, yeah, Alex, what do you make of this? Which I think is like my biggest problem always with this, that it's always us aligning ourselves with basically authoritarian states as any other, simply because they are acting as a counterweight to somebody else we are currently trying to fight.
No, I don't know if I really agree with that because, listen, we're from my um, from my bedroom window, I can see into houses in Ramallah. Okay, from if I go to where Yonatan's father lives, I can see into houses in Hebron, right? So these are people who we're living extremely close to. We're sharing resources in many ways. We're using the same roads. We're intertwined with each other, and we have to try to either figure out, are we going to not deal with each other at all? And if we have to deal with each other, how do we deconflict that? And when you look at the kind of the Palestinians, such as they are, when you look at their society, and you're trying to figure out, okay, how do we work with them? You have to look, what are the centers of power in this society? And the centers of power in Arab society, of course, it's going to be the clans. It's going to be the tribal leaders. It's the way that it is. And we can sit down with them, as we did after Oslo. We sat down and we helped them to create all of these institutions that are, anti-Semitic psychopaths. That's actually what happened in 1995. I mean, you would have Israelis. They had a television station. They wanted to have a television station in Ramallah. So all of these Israeli journalists went there to teach them about how to use cameras and how to broadcast. And nobody ever asked themselves, what are they going to broadcast from here? What is it that they're going to do? I mean, what kind of journalism are they going to do? Right? It was just, okay, they want to be like us. Oh, well, let's just go and help them. So, and I think that's a big mistake. We could have sat down with them and written a constitution exactly the same as the United States, and we could have said, "This is it. This is the way it's going to be." That's not the way that the society is. That's not the way that Arab society is made up at this time. It takes hundreds of years, thousands of years to get to, as we know, right, a Western style civilization, a Western style democracy, and it's like trying to shove a square peg in a round hole. It's like you're just going to meet resistance. So, I mean, I feel that, and there's a really great Arab journalist who I really like, Khaled Abu Tuame. He is he's a very respected Arab journalist, lives in Jerusalem. He writes for the Jewish News Syndicate and other publications, and is also very well respected in Palestinian society as well. And he talks about the good times before peace, right? The good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before peace, right? The good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before peace, right? The good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before Oslo. And he talks about the good times that we had before Oslo. And he tal where we could employ people from Hebron, where if they could wake up one day and they could decide, hey, I'm going to go and work in Tel Aviv for the day, and then I'm going to come back at night, or maybe I'm going to stay. And Jews the same. Jews could have, we could have said, hey, I want to buy a house from a guy in Hebron and I want to build a hotel, right? The options that we had available to us before this disaster that we called the kind of the Oslo experiments. And I feel that the is it perfect? Absolutely not. Is this family perfect? Absolutely not. But they are the center of power in Hebron, okay, which is a very different society than Ramallah. Very different. It's totally different structurally. And if the Emirates, model is going to be tried, I think it's a worthwhile experiment. Or we can sit around here twiddling our thumbs and hope one day they wake up and they become, constitutional Democrats, right? Who are going to be seeking, laissez-faire capitalism and, sitting around reading each other Atlas Shrugged. Okay, so we can wait for that day, which may not happen anytime soon, or we can, try to think a little bit outside of the box. Because one thing I will say about the Israelis, and also I would say about the Palestinian society, is that there's an incredible amount of resourcefulness and there's an incredible amount of, I would say, brain power. Okay, and the Palestinians are well known for being hard workers as well. So I feel like this is the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is something that can be solved, if you're just thinking a little bit differently and willing to try different things. I think that people in Hebron, I love the idea that people in Hebron, I could employ them. Okay, I love the idea that they could come and work in Tel Aviv. I love the idea. Okay, for me, I think it's, it would be a step in the right direction.
We have a super chat from Jonathan. Thank you so much. A super chat from Bonnie. Thank you so much. And another super chat from Jonathan. Thank you so much. Also, Bonnie is asking, okay, I think Razi spelled the name of the Arab journalist, so we're good there. Bonnie was also asked, what is the difference between Oslo and Abraham Accords? So basically, I mean, Abraham Accords are basically just a sort of like a foundational framework. It's not like you sign onto Abraham Accords and it's like exact thing happens. It's different for every country, but I think the main goal is normalization with relations with Israel and some form of cooperation. So I think right now the countries that are sort of being talked about are, for example, Lebanon and Syria. Now, for each of them, it could mean something different. Now, I think on the face of it, I think Israel shouldn't normalize relations with authoritarian nations. But again, especially since you have countries like Egypt, which Israel has been at peace with, Israel had normalized relations for how much? Almost 50 years. And it doesn't necessarily mean that nothing bad will come from those countries, or that now this country is basically actually wants sort of what it means to actually have peace. Now, Oslo Accords were basically the framework for the Palestinian state. It was never sort of finished, you could say, since the end of Oslo was supposed to be the establishment of the Palestinian state. Now, after Oslo itself sort of established the Palestinian Authority in the sort of Judea and Samaria at that time. And and then you had, I think you had like different, like you had Camp David later, I think in 2000, where more was supposed to be talked about, but Yasser Arafat rejected every single sort of establishment or any sort of deal that Israel offered. So yeah, take away with that what you want. Jumping to you, Marco. So I think either you or Richard, I think it was Richard who mentioned, yeah, one of the, or the main sheikhs mentioned there will be no Palestinian state, not in 1,000 years. And yeah, something I was kind of thinking about when it comes to this point. Well, first, sort of on like Alex's point, I think status quo is definitely, you cannot have status quo. Like the way it's right now, it has to change. And the question that's gonna be is where it changes. I think ideally Israel simply does maybe not necessarily annex all of the territories, but gets in control of all of the territories. I think the current state is absolutely not desirable, and full-on Palestinian state would absolutely not be desirable after everything we've seen. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'll throw in one more thing to you just so you have something to talk about is basically what we know about this sort of a deal is that main thing would be, as Alex talked about, basically it would be about work. So as part of this, Israel would admit 1,000 workers from Hebron for a trial period, then it would go to 5,000 and eventually grow to 50,000. So basically it would be about this sort of cooperation with the Israeli state. Any more thoughts on? Oh, and also the sheikhs themselves signed a letter pledging zero tolerance for terrorism by workers. So we would have to see what that means if it does indeed happen, since I think every Palestinian leader said there's going to be zero tolerance for terrorism. So yeah, Marco, any thoughts on this?
Yes, what Alex was saying earlier on actually stresses how wrong the Oslo Accords were, because they were trying to impose a single entity onto the people living in this territory. And of course, in the end, it was Arafat's terrorist dream, isn't it? To create a state, a terrorist state, named now after his made-up ethnicity of the Palestinians. So that would have been perfect. And frankly, going back to this kind of, going back to the original balance of power on the ground, i.e. by the Emirate, by the little clans, by this kind of stuff, kind of moves away from the made-up ethnicity of the Palestinians. And doing that would get rid of this stupid identity that's been created just to effectively fight Israel as such. And the imposition of the Oslo Accord was effectively the usual mistake that the West makes, trying to impose a single democratic, in inverted comma, state or way of government, which kind of mirrors what we have in the West, which will never ever work with this kind of people. It didn't work in Iran, didn't work in Afghanistan, didn't work in Libya. That doesn't work. You cannot impose a westernized way of government onto people who don't even understand what individual rights are. So to go back to the clan structure and deal individually with clans, it's probably the only viable solution. And again, having these people, even piecemeal, dealing with Israel on a as peaceful as possible way, it's effectively taking the Attila and the witch doctor, the men of war, they only understand violence, and the witch doctor, the one that justifies the violence, by quoting lines from some books here or there. You effectively temper them by introducing them a relationship with men of ideas and doers, producers, so that they understand that their ways, the ways of the violence, the way of the irrationality, can actually be less productive, less advantageous to you than using rational means, than going for the use of mind and productivity instead of violence and destruction. So that might help. That's why the Abraham Accord, again, yes, you're dealing with theocracies, absolute monarchy, dictatorships, but you're not sanctioning them as such. You're just creating an environment where there is sort of collaboration. There isn't a open warfare. So if you move towards a more rational environment, move away from this total destruction that these people have been providing for the last few centuries, it is a good thing. It's not the final point, but it's a good start. And once they realize that actually, if you allow people to live their life, if you allow different groups to pursue their own interest, selfishly, be producers rather than destroyers, this will eventually slowly seep in and change their culture. And that's what you need to achieve, a change of culture. As Alex pointed out, you cannot expect these people to change their colors overnight. They need to understand where, if you use rationality, if you use your mind, you will achieve a much better future for yourself and for your own people. And if that has to be done, well, let's go down the route. After all, we tried the big lump Palestinian state. That doesn't work because, again, corruption thrive in the Palestinian Authority and the people in charge. You've seen the relationship between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority over Gaza in 2005. So, let's give it a go. But bear in mind that, this is not the final target.
And what this does highlight really is the primitive nature of how the society is right now. We're talking about a bunch of feudal clans, aren't we? As if we're talking, before the UK became the United Kingdom and was a bunch of little local kingdoms all across the United Kingdom, thousands of years ago, a couple of thousand years ago at least. How do you get your head around it, quite honestly? I mean, some of the facts that have been laid out in some of these articles give you a sense of what we're talking about. For example, one of the articles mentioned 8 sheikhs who've come together who represent 204,000 people, 13 sheikhs who've come together who represent 350,000 people, all of them who've sworn allegiance together with some others representing a total of 700,000 people who've sworn allegiance to al-Jabari, this guy we're talking about, for now, of course, because the nature of clans is that it's always a swearing allegiance for now, isn't it? So there's that, for example. There's the fact that if you focus on that, for example, that sounds really quite primitive, but people are coming together. Maybe they're coming together. Maybe he's a decent leader. But of course, you've seen that all over the place in many occasions throughout the Middle East, where somebody is proposed as the best of all current lousy options, and everybody pins their future on that hope. At the same time, you've got somebody, he's talking about a joint economic zone of 1,000 acres near the security fence between Hebron and Israel as an area where both sides could work together. And of course, that appeals to the productive side of Israelis. It appeals to people who want to see success and something being built. And again, the biggest carrot that any clan or any group can offer the Israelis is the one they have offered, which is a statement. It's a recognition of Israel as a Jewish state. Now, that is good, but that is only a statement, isn't it? And if saying some magic words suddenly makes you trust them implicitly because they've said the phrase you wanted to hear, then you are potentially in for a rude awakening down the line. And all right, they're focusing on the fact that there's a zero tolerance to terror, and contrasting that with the Palestinians' pay to slay program, for example, Palestinian Authority's pay to slay program. And of course, again, that's what you want to hear, isn't it? And that is what you want to actually happen, but will it? Or is that just a set of words as well? And when the timetable for this is vague, when the actual map and jurisdictions of areas is obviously entirely to be debated, we really are at a highly speculative early stage of this, aren't we? And what we're being asked to, one sheikh sort of laid it out quite clearly. I can't remember whether he gave his name or not, because some of them have chosen to remain semi-anonymous. That's how much they're willing to back this plan in public. But they've contrasted the corrupt Palestinian Authority with what they're offering, which is traditional, authentic, local leadership. Now, if we were to unpick that from an objectivist standpoint, traditional, the fact that you've been around there for ages, is your claim to validity. The fact that you're authentic because you say you're authentic, because you're highlighting some bloodline or something, and that gives you the right to rule. And you're local, the fact that you've been there for ages and you're offering leadership, you're offering to bring a load of people with you. That is your bucket of jumbled concepts, which you're saying is a coherent strategy, and you should trust the whole bucket of it. Well, yeah. I don't know how to conclude other than to re-emphasize what Marco just said. It might be how we get from where we are now to where we want to be, but it's an unpleasant offering. But it might be the only route. But whatever happens, we're talking about a long time. And one of the factors here is that because these clans each run a different city, including like the 7 or whatever major cities within the West Bank, they're each got different clans in charge, and some of them aren't necessarily ready for this. And what happens in a city that turns perhaps to sees the other cities going for this, and then what happens to them? Do they end up with a sudden massive anarchy while somebody tries to determine who is the clan in charge of that city, who's got the most power, the most force, and who can take control and how quickly? So bound to be messy, bound to be long-winded, bound not to be smooth, potentially disastrous. Maybe the only route. What a lovely set of options.
I mean, I was gonna say, I mean, it's the kind of the Palestinian state thing. People really think about it as if it is an actual place. The Palestinian state exists in the 2.5 mile radius outside of Ramallah, right? Beyond that, it's just each family controls their own little area. And Mordechai Kedar, who was actually my professor in university, he wrote this book called The 8-State Solution, and that's kind of what it would be suggesting. So like it's kind of it is actually like already the situation in reality. And one of the reasons that Jenin is so lawless and is so like just kind of it's like a terror hub is because there's no main dominant family that is running Jenin. It's kind of just all of the crap from all of the surrounding places. So there is no kind of center of authority there. There's no adults, right, in the room. Like basically, if you want to think about the Palestinian Authority, they're kind of like the like the kindergarten teacher that is that has a really great handle on the first couple of kids that are like in our arms, and then the rest of the kids are like smoking, and that's the Palestinian Authority. It's just a complete facade, to be honest. So, but by the way, and also the whole thing about them being traditional and local, it's way better than them being foreign and just manufactured, right? Like the PA was. I mean, the PA was, Arafat was Egyptian. He'd never spent a day of his life in so-called Palestine. I mean, he was a foreigner. I mean, it was just like me saying, you know what, Richard, I'm going to make you the king of Ramallah, and it's just like you have no idea. You're a complete like, stranger, right? I mean, he was I don't know, he was a Westerner, basically.
Before we move on, let me remind people that today's episode of The Daily Objective is sponsored by The Objectivist Guide to the Galaxy, a new book from Zoltan Sendes. If you are an objectivist or scientist, or both or neither, and are interested in those topics, Zoltan Sendes wrote this book, The Objectivist Guide to the Galaxy, inspired a little bit by The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So the book has 42 chapters where he answers 42 questions about life and everything on Earth. So I definitely recommend this book. It should be still on sale on Kindle for just $1, so you can get it really for affordable price right now, and it's also in the paperback and hardback version. Link to that is in the chat and in the description. And let me also do one more plug, and it's our newsletter. ARCUK is doing a lot of events, especially this year, and one of the best places to find out when something is happening as soon as they are planned is by joining our newsletter. You can go to the website aynrandcenter.co.uk/newsletter. The link to that is also in the chat and in the description. We have a super chat from Nomad. Thank you so much. He says, there is no history of a unified Palestinian government. Dividing into towns and clans is a much more natural and consistent with history. There is no history of unified nation states in Middle East besides Israel. This is a very much a Western concept of basically having a state that has a central authority and that has authority all over. Like Marco mentioned earlier, Italy barely has the concept of nation state handled. So yeah, many of the Middle Eastern nations do not really have that. It is mostly just one center, usually the capital, where there is an actual central hold. And then you have sort of remote areas where it is sort of just a local rule. So even thinking of nations like Saudi Arabia is already sort of like stretching it a bit. But yeah, absolutely, there is no such thing. And this idea of yeah, trying and it is very much Western in a wrong way of trying to impose that with things like Palestinian Authority. It's still sort of the goal, right? The goal is to establish the Palestinian state, completely ignoring what even that Palestinian state would represent and the fact that it's not working. This is not the way it is. Yeah, I wanna bring up something else. Yeah, so there is also that sort of like worry about this idea of reformation, right? It's the fact is that you now have the Arabs inside of Israel proper that have full rights, and it seems to be going relatively well. Now, that had to be imposed, similar to sort of the way it was imposed on Germany and Japan after World War II. Now, in the history, we have also examples of authoritarian nations sort of flipping to becoming more liberal, becoming more democratic. Think of South Korea and Taiwan. At the time, during the civil wars, they were dictatorships on the pretty much authoritarian level of their communist countersides. Now they've reformed, they've adapted, they became sort of like modern liberal democracies. Now, my biggest sort of question for this would be, can this happen? Can these clans, can these Palestinian Emirates, let's say, become at some point more modern, can become have that sort of peaceful nature with Israel, or are we basically looking forward to another time where, okay, it was a long time since Palestinians were killing Jews, let's try it again, let's try to give it another go, because the fact is that all of these clans were happy to sort of be under the auspices of Hamas and Palestinian Authority until they actually started suffering the consequences of basically supporting this regime. So, Alex, what would you make of that future, possible future?
I mean, I don't know. I don't necessarily know that these people really did support the PA. I mean, there was a lot of families at the time who were very against Oslo, and they couldn't understand, like, what are you doing? Why are you bringing these thugs from Libya to come and, you know, establish a state here? So, you know, when you speak to people who are over, I want to say 60, right? They have a very different memory of this. You know, and really, I mean, it's hard to really imagine what was going to happen, because I imagine that there would, I mean, either way you look at it, there will be a civil war, right, between the various Palestinian clans. I mean, that's just it's just when is it that's going to happen? I mean, if you want to think about it, I mean, there's clans here that have blood feuds, which means that they're at war forever in perpetuity, and I mean, violence really is sort of the name of the game. Here, it's the way that problems are resolved. Um, people put like hits out on each other. I mean, there was a guy, I mean, I'm really not, I'm not mocking this person at all. They were in pain. There was a guy who put a hit out on Israeli TV. His It was a Bedouin father whose son was killed sadly in October the 7th. And because it's just, he didn't realize what it was he was saying on Israeli TV. He puts a hit out. He says, I'll pay 1,000,000 shekels if you can, kill the people that did this. We know who they are. And, it's sort of like, come on, like this is not Andrew, you understand the pain, but this is the way that problems are solved, sadly, in this neck of the woods. I think that the calculation will have been made that the Palestinian Authority, I mean, they have no authority, but eventually it will fall. And and that will be, maybe you want to be there to kind of sort of bring it down gently, right? And sort of manage that decline rather than have it go all at once and it's just boom, okay, eruption of violence, multiple volcanoes, right, going off at the same time. So it's whether you want to manage that reality. If you want to get in there first and try to make it so that it's not just complete tyranny there, that's also an option. But it's very difficult because these people have gone through 25 years of brutal Nazi education. So I don't know what you do about that, right? It's very scary. As much as I would love to hire somebody from Hebron to come and work in my, town or whatever, I'd be really scared. I really would, because it's like, would you hire somebody from the SS? I mean, probably not. I mean, that's kind of how I feel, right? So it's an extremely mixed feeling that I have, but however, if I really saw that this was a concerted realization and an effort to be civilized, then I would be happy for my mind to be changed. I'd be happy to be proven completely incorrect. So I think we're gonna have to wait and see. I would like to see, goodwill, I think, from these clans.
Before I go to you, Marco, I might as well bring up sort of what these sheikhs have been, their anti-PA Palestinian Authority sentiments. So one of them said the PLO called itself a liberation movement, but once they got control, they act only to steal the money of the people. They don't have the right to represent us, not them and not Hamas, only we ourselves. Another one said, we want the world to hear our pain. The PA steals everything. They even steal our water. We don't have water to drink. Yeah, I think that's what he said. And yeah, generally, it is kind of surprising Palestinian Authority is still in power, although, as Alex has said, in power just means sort of like holding on to what is technically the capital, Ramallah. But yeah, the fact is that it is incredibly unpopular amongst everybody. It does seemingly to be propped up by, unfortunately, the Western states, like the European Union, like the United States as well. And yeah, I think we would probably be much better off just letting it fall. But the European Union is, if you think Israel is sometimes too quick to jump on any peace from Palestinians, Mahmoud Abbas said, maybe we'll stop giving people money for killing Jews. And EU is like, oh my God, take more money. Take whatever you need. This is more than we could have expected from. Actually, take even more, because like making such a compromise to your values should be rewarded more. But
He's
yeah,
a Care Bear. I'm gonna get him to look after my kids now. Come on, Abu Mazen, warming my heart.
yeah, I mean, Marco, any thoughts on this from you?
Yeah, it's also not beyond the pale. He's just trying to make the Emir guy try to make a cynical move in order to position himself, just knowing that the PA hasn't got much to exist, to be honest. If anything else, because in May, the end of May, when Trump went to Saudi Arabia, he made a funny statement, something like. The Palestinians can choose whether to be like Iran or the Gulf. Well, first of all, is a bum choice, isn't it? Do you want to be Iran? No. Do you want to be the Gulf? No. But in his mind, that's the kind of Western-friendly bunch of savages who seem to play nice on the surface, but if you start digging underneath, you'll find what kind of rot there is. But so this guy is probably trying to play the trump card, literally, by being seen to appease Trump. Also hoping perhaps that the president might intervene himself if the PA falls apart for whatever reason, or if there is an alternative plan that might might conceive a review of Oslo or something like that. He'll have placed himself in a good position to gain territory, power, whatever. So it's not beyond the pale. I mean, ultimately, what motivates these people is the same. It's the same ideology that was behind the various incidents here in London. Only last Monday it was 20 years from the terrorist attacks here in London on the tube and buses, and people fell over themselves here. Not to mention what the actual cause was. They didn't use the word Islamism at all. It was just terrorism. So if you don't recognize that behind what motivates these people is Islamism, often pure anti-Semitism fueled by Islamism, well, then you're going to fall in the trap, aren't you? You cannot trust them unless they prove that they're on the right side of, that they're not just talking, they're not just simulating, trying to make you believe they're your friends, and then they stab you in the back. So we've seen this over and over and over again. That's their MO. And we appear to be so stupid in the West to always fall down towards rely on the fact that we see a benevolent world out there which can be dealt with, and these people only see violence and conquest. They don't build stuff, they destroy, they take what they want. So yeah, again, hopefully they will prove themselves. If we go down the route of associating ourselves with this kind of one tribe at a time, one clan at a time, fine. But they have to prove that they are not just pretending and waiting, in the shadow before they attack again.
Just a quick aside on the 7/7 bombings coverage that Marco referred to there within London, the 20 years since those bombings on tubes and buses, which killed 52 people. You've seen a lot of evasion in terms of the coverage of that, as Marco mentioned, a focus entirely on the victims, or a focus on how the security services in those 20 years have largely, and I say largely with some caveats, kept us safe. But they've only been able to keep us safe because behind the scenes, those security services have been identifying exactly what the problem is, i.e. Islamism, and have been pursuing those that follow such an ideology and are likely to engage in terrorist acts as a result of it, and therefore to nip it in the bud. So in order to stop this kind of evil, you have to recognize what is really causing it. And that needs to be both behind the scenes by the security services and in front of the scenes in terms of what politicians and indeed what the average person recognizes is the cause of the problem. Just back to what you were saying earlier about the sheikhs and their attitude towards Trump. I mean, one of them actually referred to the Honourable President Trump in one of his statements. Now, obviously, in many ways, he's viewing Trump as the clan leader of the USA, which by many measures you could consider is how he presents himself. But now that's not to say he's an equivalent to one of these sheikhs that we're talking about, but certainly, you know, you could draw some parallels in terms of the ego and the approach and the whim-based means of doing deals and business. Perhaps I think interesting to concentrate perhaps on what draws the ordinary Joe within, or the ordinary Mo, perhaps that should be, within Hebron or whatever, to these sheikhs. And what the two hooks that they're being encouraged to bite on are tribal loyalty, i.e. the safety of this gang, there being the safety of a familiar gang, as one plank of it, and the other is the economic pragmatism, the idea that well, you know, you've got a future here that we could be lighted by. We could have the shiny new stuff if only we adopt this approach. Those are trying to have ends without the necessary means. Really, it's trying to skip to the rewards of safety and money without being able to implement all of the necessary basis to that would allow you to achieve both and to achieve them permanently, which is what any productive country like Israel itself does through you know its concentration on freedom and individual rights. So that would be the ultimate you know desire for any part of the world, but we're a long way from that, aren't we?
Yeah, just quickly, specifically, the honorable is also the formal way to address the President of the United States. So I'm wondering if this was what they were doing, or if it was really sort of just more of the clan setting.
I don't remember anyone on this channel using that.
It's a formal. You should never. Basically, I think it's very unique circumstance when you would like use it. Informally, it's Mr. President.
Yeah, I have an idea, guys, that I think we should that maybe we should try to see if we can patent a keffiyeh, but it's orange, you know, because they have different colors for the different clans. So maybe like for Trump, his keffiyeh could be like orange. What do you guys, please let me know if you guys want one, and we'll see if we can. I think every person who joins the ARCUK will get an orange keffiyeh.
Already opening up the Photoshop for that.
Made in China.
Yeah.
Like the new Trump phone. With that, moving with the last thoughts, there is when it comes to something I think really has to be achieved is really destroying the word Palestinian, or sort of any idea of Palestinian unified thing, because the only thing Palestinians are united about is killing Jews. That's the only thing that truly unites them. That's why whenever there is a poll asking who should represent the Palestinian people, they pick the biggest terrorist they can find in an Israeli prison, like currently Marwan Barghouti, potentially even getting released in some of the reports I've seen. Hopefully it's not true. It will be the craziest thing ever.
It's very important that he dies. I mean, really, it's very important, you know, more than Arafat dying. So, you know.
Yeah,
I'm not making a hit. I'm just saying if he was to fall down a flight of stairs, no big deal.
How many life consecutive sentences does he have? Yesterday I said over 50, which I think is...
No, it's wrong. Technically, he only killed 5 people, but I mean, he did mastermind the Second Intifada, so we're talking like thousands. But again, it's difficult to pin him on so many, but he was convicted, I think, of 5 directly. So he's practically an angel. I mean, 55. I mean, he's lightweight.
So with that, any last thoughts from you, Alex, and where can people find you?
Yeah, I mean, just Alex has not issued a fatwa. Okay, I think someone in the chat has just said no. No, not at all. But accidents happen. What can I say? So I really recommend today reading Khaled Abu Tuame, who I really enjoy as a journalist. In addition to that, I recommend reading a little bit more about from Mordechai Kedar on his book. I think he also has a website for it, the Eight-State Solution. So he obviously was a professor for a long time at Bar Ilan, but I mean he had a 30-year career in military intelligence as well. So he's not just kind of like a wacky professor that's had this idea. I think he's been thinking, and he's a not native Arab speaker, but he speaks Arabic, obviously, and he really is spent 50 years thinking about this problem in this culture. I think he has some great ideas and some less great ideas. So I recommend that, and obviously ARCUK. And thanks very much, everybody. And if anybody wants to hear more from us chit-chatting, then we also have a WhatsApp group if you join ARCUK and become a member. We also have a small kind of, lots of jokes and private military company that we're creating. Yeah, but we can't talk about that. You guys have to join. Thanks, everybody.
That's the WhatsApp group is for website members only, so you can become one by visiting aynrandcenter.co.uk/membership. It's also in the description. We also have a super chat from Christian. Thank you so much. He says, Alex has a good taste. I like Khalid Abu Tameh as well. I've read him for years now. He also has a show on GNS with Dan Diker. Thank you so much for that. Marco, any last thoughts from you, and where can people find you?
Yes, traditional, local, and authentic is a very good slogan if you're opening a restaurant. But if you're thinking about ruling over people in the Middle East, well, perhaps not so much given the history of these people. Again, anything that moves away from the status quo, because history is not a deterministic thing. It's not written in stone. We can choose a different outcome. We can choose different structures. So everything that moves away from the current violence, the current cycle of violence, it's welcome. But again, has to be proven. You can't just rely on what some savages tells you today, and you have to see what they do tomorrow. So yeah, anything moves to peace and cooperation and a safer world, especially for Israelis, is welcome. But don't be naive about it, because you've been burnt now for 80 years.
Yeah, and it's that hope and that urgent desire for peace that has been both Israel and the West's Achilles heel for so long, because it's been picking, one lesser terrorist over last week's hideous terrorist until the new guy becomes the hideous terrorist, and that risks happening again and again, sadly. So, total victory really is the only real solution. But it doesn't mean that you can't take some people along with you, and it's a question of making the right arguments along the way and trying to get the best you can out of what is a pretty tricky situation at the moment, and of course recognizing that it takes a long time. And I think the fact that people expect a solution to be in place, like a new government is in place in some Western country and be up and running, and is impractical and unrealistic, frankly. So there's going to need to be a long period of Israeli control, at least in a transitionary state, and that's even in the best possible scenario that we can envisage. You can always check out the Briefly Objective, which is in the link to many of the descriptions on these shows here on this channel. Short form material, really, really concise principles based on everything that's been going on in the conflict. And please like, subscribe, and watch as many of those as you can. Thank you.
And we have a super chat from Jukes D. Thank you so much. He says, great job, guys. Thank you for your support. And let me finish this by reminding people about the Irreplaceable Spark conference. It's the most networking focused conference for objectivists, designed to help creators, builders, innovators, and entrepreneurs to apply their values to achieve long lasting success in business and life. So definitely check it out. You can find out more information about it on the website. Again, it's on October 25th and 26th. It's a weekend conference, so you can, it's in Southern California, specifically Orange County. So you can basically fly in for a weekend and still not miss a day of work. And I think it's going to be a transformative weekend. So again, you can check it out at objectivism.co.uk. Thank you guys for joining me today. Thank you everybody for watching, and bye bye.